Hello everyone and welcome to the Hockey Hub. I'm Brennan and today we're looking at some of the latest news within the hockey world. Now obviously we've seen some not so great news within the hockey community lately when it comes to injuries or players being out and stuff like that, but there's also some trade requests, and I'm not going to get into the actual signings today. I'm going to save that for a separate video that I'm going to post on a later date because there has been a lot of signings within the last week. But we're just going to kind of talk about some of the other news, and we're going to look at the World Juniors a bit. But we're going to start off with how the World Juniors has gone so far. Now, to be honest, the round-robin tournament for the World Juniors has been kind of disappointing to me. I know that this is kind of usually how it goes, where, the top-heavy teams kind of dominate the round-robin. But to be honest, I think this year we're seeing even more of that because, you got Canada and Finland in Group A, and then the other three teams are kind of weaker. So Canada's blowing teams out of the water. The U.S., Russia, and just some of these teams look like they're not able to keep up, like Austria. They did put up a semi-decent fight against Russia in last night's game, but that being said, a semi-decent fight for Austria was still like a 7 or 8-1 loss. So it's been a very lopsided tournament, and to me that kind of makes for boring hockey. I would like to see more tightly contested games, and I understand that that's not going to happen when you have a team like Canada facing Switzerland. I personally think that the groups should be more balanced than that. I get why they are the way they are, but that being said, you've got a super group in Group B, and then Group A, it's kind of just a route for Canada. But that being said, there has been some good games, mainly between some of the weaker teams. Like there was a really good game against Switzerland versus Slovakia and Germany versus Slovakia. So those have actually been good games to watch. And the Germans have shown me a lot, despite the fact that they played their first two games with only 14 skaters. To me, I think Tim Stützle has been the best player of the tournament. I know Trevor Zegras has really shown a lot, but Stützle has really carried that German team alongside JJ Peterka, and those two look like a really good duo, and it's kind of a shame that they're probably not going to ever play together. But that being said, maybe Buffalo and Ottawa could maybe figure out a deal, but I doubt either team would want to send each player either way. So, yeah, I think that Stützle and Peterka have been really good, but then, looking at some of the other players, I think Dylan Cousins and Philip Tomasino have been really good for Canada. So, there is some standouts, but there is also some players that have kind of been on a little bit of a slump. I know Caulfield has kind of been a little disappointing, but he did get a goal against Austria, so maybe, or not against Austria, sorry, against the Czech Republic, so maybe he's going to be able to turn that around. Quinton Byfield just had himself a massive night as well after being kind of invisible in the tournament. Having a 6-point night was really impressive, and it was good to see him kind of break out. So we are starting to see some of these players pick up traction, and I do think that the tournament should pick up traction when we actually get into the, the actual important games to see who advances to the next round and everything. But the round robin has been kind of disappointing overall, but there has been some fun games mixed in. But now we're going to get into some injury news, and if you're a Blackhawks fan, you might want to sit down. Kirby Dach is going to be out 4 to 5 months as a result of the injury he suffered in the World Junior pregame against Russia. I was watching that game, and as soon as I saw what happened, it wasn't necessarily what actually happened, but more so Dach's reaction to it, and just the way he was holding his wrist. I think everybody could tell it wasn't good, and it's actually probably worse than I thought, especially since that picture was tweeted out of what Dach's wrist actually looked like, and it's pretty ugly, to be honest. So Dach had to have surgery, which was successful, so that's good, and he is on track to fully heal. But it is going to take a while. 4 to 5 months means he's probably going to miss the entirety of the season, and that is probably immensely disappointing for Blackhawks fans, and even as a hockey fan in general. I was looking forward to see Dach take that next step. I think he's one of the best young players potentially in the league, and I think that he does have the potential to be the best player from that 2019 draft. That being said, missing his sophomore year could end up hurting his development a little bit, but I think Dach is so good that he should be fine as long as he keeps training, using whatever resources he can, but it's definitely disappointing. But Jonathan Toews is also going to be sidelined for what could end up being the entire year due to undiagnosed illness. Toews has said that the illness has made him kind of fatigued, lazy, and kind of a lack of motivation. There's a lot of things that this could be, and I don't want to get into speculation. The only thing or not the only thing, but I think it kind of sounds like Lyme disease, but there's no way to tell yet. He's going through scans, or him and his doctors are trying to figure out, and he has asked for privacy in this time, so I think we should all respect that. But that being said, Taves not being there for the Blackhawks is going to be another massive blow to their center depth. So now basically their top two centers are out, and they're going to have to rely on Dylan Strome to kind of step up and be the number one center. I like Dylan Strome, but I don't know if he's capable of being a one center, and I think this is definitely going to be a very poor year for the Chicago Blackhawks. Taves being out is really unfortunate, and Taves is one of my favorite players in the league, so I'm really hoping that he's going to be able to figure out whatever this is and come back better than ever, and maybe lead Chicago to years from now after they've rebuilt and maybe another Stanley Cup. I really love Jonathan Taves, and I'm really wishing a full recovery for him. There's also been the very unfortunate news that Henrik Lundqvist is going to miss the entirety of the NHL 2020-2021 season, and that he's actually going to have open heart surgery as well. So Lundqvist isn't playing the season due to a heart condition that he's played with his entire year, but as he gets older and with the whole COVID landscape, him and his, kind of the people around him have decided that it's not a good idea for him to play this season, and I totally respect that decision, although it's an unfortunate one. Henrik Lundqvist is one of the greatest goaltenders of all time. In my opinion, he's a top 10 goalie. He's always been a class act and is one of my favorite players in the league. So I was kind of looking forward to see Lundqvist, maybe get a chance to rebound with the Washington Capitals. But now that he's also set to have open heart surgery, to be honest, I doubt he plays again in the NHL, which is really unfortunate. But right now, we're all just wishing the best for his health. Open heart surgery is quite scary, so I'm really hoping that Lundqvist will be okay and that he'll get through it like he's gotten through everything in his career. He's such a decorated goaltender and, truly one of the greatest of all time. Swedish legend, and in my opinion, a first ballot Hall of Famer. So I'm really wishing the best for Hank to pull through, and I think he will pull through. He's still a very good athlete. He's still in top shape. But that being said, open heart surgery is scary, so we're all praying for him. But then another kind of minor injury we've seen is Nico Hischier. Now, apparently Nico Hischier kind of tweaked his leg or something in training camp in Switzerland, so he's going to be out maybe a few days of the regular season or maybe a few weeks. There isn't exactly a set timetable for it yet, but it's not expected to be a long-term injury, which should be good news for New Jersey fans that it's not going to be an injury like Doc's. But that being said, even if they end up losing Hischier for about 7 games, that could be enough to sink them early on. Hischier is a very good young player, although I'm not sure he would go first overall if they redid that draft. Hischier's still a premier young centerman and could end up being one of the best two-way centers in the league in the next few short years. Nikita Kucherov is also going to miss the entirety of the regular season this upcoming season, since I believe he had some form of hip surgery. This does help out the Tampa Bay Lightning's salary cap situation, since they can place the full $9.5 million on the long-term injured reserve. But that being said, Kucherov isn't exactly the guy you want to lose to solve this situation. To me, Kucherov is the best winger in the NHL. I think he proved that even more in the playoffs. He was fantastic in the playoffs. He was still good in the regular season, and is only one season removed from winning a Hart Trophy and an Art Ross and a Ted Lindsay. So Kucherov is one of the best in the league, and that is actually going to hurt Tampa Bay a lot to lose him. That being said, they are going to have a healthy Stamkos and then Braden Point, and they still probably got the best team in the NHL on paper. But losing Kucherov definitely hurts. I think he is their best player, so hopefully he's going to be able to return for the playoffs, and hopefully maybe even lead the Tampa Bay Lightning to another cup run. I definitely think that Tampa Bay is possible that, but they are going to need Kucherov in the lineup. Now we've got some trades and some trade speculation. Now we're going to start off with the fact that Winnipeg Jets restricted free agent forward Jack Roslovic has requested a trade from the Jets. Now there was a report that came out a few days ago that he was not going to attend training camp unless he got a trade or a new contract from the Jets, but now it just looks like he wants to be traded. Roslovic has been very vocal about not being played enough or utilized enough, and that can be frustrating for a young player, and we have seen this with other young players in Winnipeg, such as Patrick Laine. I'm not sure where a potential trade destination would work for Jack Roslovic, though. He's still a restricted free agent, and he's probably going to demand around $2 million a year, so I think a good fit would be a team like the Chicago Blackhawks, who are desperately craving centers right now. But that being said, I'm not too sure. I think Roslovic does have a little bit of a potential. He was a first-round draft pick after all, and I still think that he has maybe a second-line forward offside with a good two-way game. I like Jack Roslovic's overall game, but obviously he's not going to be able to continue that game and his career with the Winnipeg Jets. He's demanded a trade, and I expect to see one sooner rather than later. He does have some value, so Winnipeg should look to get a decent package back for him. But then we have some trades involving the Ottawa Senators. Now to start off with the earlier one we saw the Arizona Coyotes send Derek Stepan to the Ottawa Senators for a second-round draft pick. Now, my initial reaction to this trade is Ottawa is really trying to weaponize their draft picks and their cap space. Stefan is definitely overpaid at this point in his career, $6.5 million for what he provides. He's more like a second or third line centerman, so it's a hefty contract, but that being said, he's still a decent player and should fit in well in Ottawa. But I think Arizona is probably the winner of this trade. Stefan's definitely overpaid, like I just said, and his contract is really heavy for a team that's kind of in cap hell right now. And they also got a second-round draft pick, which they desperately need right now since the loss of some of their draft picks due to the whole scouting and tampering fine, basically. So I do think that is a good trade for the Arizona Coyotes more than Ottawa. I do think Arizona wins that trade. But that being said, I don't mind it from the Ottawa side either. It helps shore up their center depth, and it doesn't allow kids to just walk into roster spots. I know that can be frustrating for some fans, but you got to think about it from the coach's perspective. They don't want to have to hand these young players roster spots. They want the young players to fight for it and earn it and prove that they should be in that lineup night in and night out. So having a guy like Stepan is going to make it harder for some of these kids to push their way into the lineups, but as a result, I think he's going to end up, bringing some kids along and helping them kind of progress. He is a good two-way centerman, and I think could be a good role model for a guy like Drake Batherson or maybe Josh Norris there. So I do like getting Stepan. I don't think he was worth the second-round pick, but that being said, Ottawa did end up getting a second-round pick back in their next trade with the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Tampa Bay Lightning sent a second-round pick, Cedric Paquette, and Braden Coburn to the Ottawa Senators for Marian Gaborik and Anders Nielsen. Now the key here is that Gaborik and Nielsen are probably not going to play again. Nielsen has been struggling with concussion issues and missed basically the entirety of last year's season and is going to miss the entirety of this season. If you're out that long with a concussion, to be honest, I doubt that he returns to the NHL, and Marian Gaborik hasn't played in a while, so those guys are just LTIR money for the Tampa Bay Lightning, which actually kind of solves their salary cap situation. Having those two guys go on the LTIR alongside with Nikita Kucherov should actually be enough to let Tampa get under the cap. When Kucherov comes back, I'm not sure what they're going to do, though. I still imagine that they're trying to trade out Tyler Johnson, but that being said, they kind of have a short-term fix for their salary cap situation, and it's kind of impressive that they were able to keep that core intact. Losing Kucherov for an entire season does hurt, like I talked about previously, but that being said, giving up a second-round draft pick and Braden Coburn and Cedric Paquette to kind of fix this is good. That being said, I definitely think the Ottawa Senators win this trade, though. Paquette is a really good fourth-line centerman, Coburn is a good defensive defenseman, and getting a second-round draft pick for that just to move out two guys that weren't going to play, to me, I think Ottawa wins this trade by a landslide. I do get what Tampa was doing, and it is going to work for them, but this is just really good value for the Ottawa Senators, and it adds more experience and depth to help along these young players, since we are looking at a very young Ottawa team. I do think that this Ottawa team is going to be competitive in the Canadian division. I still think they end up finishing last, but that being said, I could see them still hovering around a 500 record. I really like what Ottawa's done this offseason. You look at what they've brought in versus what they lost, and they've really had a good overall offseason, and it just seems to be getting better. So they did get that second-round pick back that they lost in the Stepan trade. I get that it's going to be a lower second-round pick than what Ottawa's will be, but that being said, a second-round pick is still a second-round pick, still has some value, and you can still get good players in the second round no matter where you draft. So that is a really good pickup for the Ottawa Senators. But that does it for today's video. I appreciate you guys watching till the end. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you guys later. Bye for now.